Donald Trump just fired a shot that could cripple India's $25 billion pharmaceutical industry, and hardly anyone's talking about it. His newly proposed tariff policy directly targets Indian drug exports, threatening the supply of life-saving medicines to millions of Americans and sending shockwaves through India's economy. What's behind this dramatic shift, and what could it mean for both countries? Economically, politically, and globally? Let's unpack everything. India is often called the pharmacy of the world, and with good reason. The country produces more than 20% of the global supply of generic medications and contributes over 40% of all generic drugs consumed in the United States. These medicines, ranging from essential antibiotics to complex cancer treatments, have become a lifeline for millions of patients, especially in the US, where the cost of branded medication has continued to skyrocket over the years. Now, that affordable access is under threat, as Donald Trump signals a return to his signature American First trade policies. He's proposing a sweeping set of tariffs on foreign imports, including pharmaceutical goods from India. It's a bold move aimed at boosting US manufacturing, but it may come at a high price. India's pharmaceutical sector is not only massive, it's strategically critical. The industry is valued at over $50 billion, with more than $24 billion coming from exports. Indian pharma companies manufacture a wide range of medicines, from generic alternatives of popular branded drugs to complex biologics and vaccines. The United States is India's single largest export destination for pharmaceutical products. Indian companies like Sun Pharma, Dr. Reddy's, Cipla, and Lupin have invested heavily in quality control and FDA compliance to ensure that they meet the stringent standards of the American healthcare system. In fact, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has permanent offices in India to regularly inspect and certify manufacturing facilities, a testament to the deep economic and regulatory ties between the two nations. But it's not just about business. These exports play a key role in America's public health strategy. Generic drugs from India are estimated to save the U.S. healthcare system over $300 billion annually. Without them, prices would rise sharply, and for many patients, life-saving treatment would become unaffordable. In his latest campaign messaging and policy outlines, Trump has called for a universal baseline tariff of at least 10% on all imported goods, with even higher tariffs, potentially 60% or more, for countries with large trade surpluses or those accused of manipulating their currencies or undercutting American industries. India falls into this category, particularly in pharmaceuticals, where it enjoys a massive trade surplus with the US. The justification? Trump argues that the US has become too dependent on foreign manufacturing, especially in strategic sectors like pharmaceuticals. He believes these tariffs will bring jobs back to American soil, reduce foreign reliance, and strengthen national security. But critics argue that applying these tariffs to essential medical goods, especially from a strategic partner like India, is a dangerous gamble. If the US imposes steep tariffs on Indian drug exports, Indian companies will face higher costs entering the American market. Many may be forced to either absorb the cost, cutting into already thin profit margins, or raise their prices, making them less competitive compared to American-made drugs or even products from other countries not subject to such tariffs. Small and mid-sized Indian pharma firms, in particular, would be hit the hardest. These companies depend heavily on US contracts in order to stay afloat. Losing even a fraction of that business could lead to layoffs, reduced output, or even closures. And it's not just about the pharmaceutical industry in isolation. The sector supports a vast ecosystem, from research institutions to packaging firms to logistics providers. An economic shock here could ripple out across multiple layers of India's economy. For the US, the consequences could also be severe. Higher tariffs on Indian generics will inevitably drive up drug prices. At a time when the US is battling rising healthcare costs and inflation, this move could add billions to public and private healthcare expenditures. Moreover, not all American pharmaceutical firms are prepared to scale up manufacturing to fill the gap. Many rely on India not just for finished drugs, but for active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs, the raw materials used to make medicines. Disruptions in that supply chain could lead to drug shortages or quality issues. The U.S. and India have spent the past decades strengthening their diplomatic, military, and economic ties, partly as a strategic response to the growing influence of China. Joint military exercises, energy agreements, and tech partnerships have brought the two nations closer than ever. But this tariff threat could strain that relationship. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who has previously shared a friendly rapport with Trump, may be forced to retaliate. That could mean reciprocal tariffs on American goods like agricultural products and medical devices, or software services, areas where U.S. exporters have significant interests in the Indian market. Diplomatically, it sends a confusing signal. Is the U.S. threatening India as a trusted ally or as just another trade rival? Such mixed messages could push India to diversify its partnerships, possibly deepening economic ties with the European Union, ASEAN nations, or even China, an outcome that runs counter to U.S. strategic interests. India's pharmaceutical industry is the backbone of healthcare delivery in many developing nations. Countries across Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia rely on Indian generics for affordable treatments against diseases like malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV. If tariffs force Indian companies to cut back on production or raise prices to maintain profitability, these nations could face medicine shortages. Nonprofits, global health organizations, and humanitarian missions that depend on Indian pharma could be left scrambling for alternatives, which are either more expensive or less readily available. One indirect effect could be the disruption of international aid programs. Organizations like Médecins Sans Frontières and the Global Fund purchase millions of doses of Indian drugs every year for global distribution. If those costs rise sharply, lives could be at risk. So, can American pharmaceutical companies step in and replace India's role in global drug supply? Well, not anytime soon. While the U.S. has world-class pharmaceutical research and production capabilities, the cost of manufacturing is significantly higher due to labor, regulation, and infrastructure challenges. Rebuilding or expanding domestic production to the scale India currently operates at would take years and billions of dollars in investment. There's also the issue of expertise. India has built a massive workforce of trained pharmaceutical professionals, from chemists to regulatory experts, that the U.S. simply can't replicate overnight. In short, even if Trump's goal is to localize pharma production, the short and mid-term reality is that India remains essential to maintaining the stability and affordability of drug supply chains, not just for the U.S., but for the world. Several trade associations and CEOs have issued strong statements, calling the proposed tariffs economically disruptive and harmful to global health equity. Some companies are already exploring options to set up manufacturing hubs in the U.S. to bypass tariffs entirely, though that comes with some massive costs and long timelines. Meanwhile, American health organizations, including hospitals and insurance providers, have expressed concern that these policies could lead to significant increases in drug prices, affecting accessibility for patients, particularly those on government programs like Medicare and Medicaid. Some policy analysts are also warning that this could open the door for counterproductive protectionism, where global trade becomes increasingly fractured, and essential goods like medicine become tools of geopolitical negotiation rather than universal rights. At its core, Trump's proposed tariffs are part of a larger battle over globalization, sovereignty, and economic power. But when applied to something as vital as medicine, the stakes are exceptionally higher. This isn't just about protecting American factories or bringing jobs back. This is about millions of people who rely on affordable medication to survive. And if that system is disrupted, the consequences will be felt across hospital rooms, pharmacies, and entire healthcare systems. India's pharmaceutical sector has long been a stabilizing force in the global health economy. Undermining it, even if unintentional, could set off a chain reaction that no one is prepared to manage. But what do you think? Is Trump's tariff plan a bold step toward national self-reliance, or a reckless policy that could harm millions? Drop your thoughts down in the comment section below, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a deep dive into global business and politics. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay informed.